Hi, this is Shadow Child. Welcome to my studio in beautiful Cambridge. I'm going to go through today my remix slash update of Jaydee Plastic Dreams, which is a very classic R&S record, which some people I'm sure will recognise, and some people may say, oh, you should leave that alone. Other people hopefully will just enjoy the end result that I've got with it. So yeah, we'll head into it now. I only got sent a few parts from the original. There weren't really any full stems. There's a couple of real classic sounds that are in the original track. One which is the intro, which is this, I don't know if you would call it a bell, I call it a bell, which is this sound. So literally I got one note. In the original track it kind of has, it kind of repeats, it kind of has like a rhythmic pattern that it does. So I put that into Logic and made it do that original thing that it did. I also got two of the drum loops from the original from R&S as well. So this is one. That I chopped up and did something else with, which I'll show you in a moment. And there's this, which is very reminiscent of the time. So we're talking 92, 93. There's a lot of drum loops and stuff in the tracks that were sounding like this. So there's that, and then the infamous organ, which was from, it's an old Yamaha organ actually. A lot of people I think always go straight to the M1 for this organ sound, but its original kind of location is on the old Yamaha DX sort of series. So they sent me this, which is a full stem, not just a little part. So that's the classic R&S Jaydee, bass, which is the essence of the track. There's also another melody which is in the original, which I didn't get, which is played by the same sound, but I'll come back to that in a moment. That's the kind of main elements from the original that I got given. Now there's a couple of other bits that I thought, I wish that they'd sent me that. One of those things being some percussion from the 808, which I put together myself using my own 808 up there. So it's kind of just like a little hi-hat and a shaker pattern. So immediately when I've recorded the MIDI in and got the sound right, I just bounce it straight away into the computer. So this audio here is from the 808. So it literally is just that, but it's so effective in the original track that I thought it was quite important to have as part of this version that I've done. So yeah, we'll go back to that first sound, which is that bell sound. If I play the intro of the track, I've been opening up all my DJ sets with this for about 8-9 months now, because it's taken time, since I was asked to do it, for it all to kind of come about. So it's been nice to just have something really exclusive to kind of play. So if you've seen me in the last 10 months, you've definitely heard this. So I recreated that rhythmic pattern of that bell sound. And you can hear the 808 that I just spoke about. Famously, I always do my drums in Reason. It's just what I love to do. I get a good sound from Reason. I find that the programming is very me. It's how I learned to do things a long time ago on the step sequencer. So I still put all my drums together on there. So that's the clap sound. We'll come back to the drums in a moment as well. So that's how the intro goes down. Basically, I've stacked on a load of delays. It's a little rogue MIDI part going on there. I've stacked on a load of delay and and reverb as well. I've also squashed it together a bit. I love this tape plugin, which is part of Waves. So I've used that on there as well to kind of squash everything in nicely. So you can hear towards the end of this, that organ's not meant to be in there, so we'll take that out. So you can hear that opening right up. It's quite simple. It's just Logic plugins actually on this. All I'm automating in this section here is the space reverb, space designer reverb, which has got 22 seconds of reverb on it, which is quite heavy, but that's what gives it that completely saturated kind of feeling. You've also got some drums under there as well, which give it that kind of build. So the percussion starts to build. If I go over to Reason, where my drums are, so you've got some hi-hats here. It's just an extra long kind of 808 hi-hat, which is also automated to open right up. You can probably hear it there. There we go. This is just a cymbal, really long cymbal. So it just gives that more intense kind of experience before the track drops. There. Also, these effects here that I've put in, they're just, you know, any old kind of effects that are on my computer. They happen to be Vengeance, which is, you know, not the coolest place to get these things from, but I always try and do things to them, or I listen for something in the effect. So in this case, I was listening for something that was in kind of key with the track. So if you listen to it, it's you can hear that it's in key. It's just this little sound here, and it makes such an important kind of contribution to that drop. Just that as well, with the little bit of white noise. So we're going to come to the organ now. Now, as I was saying earlier, I had the full stem of the organ, but I just found that I wanted to do something with the stem in the processing that I couldn't kind of do. So I just recreated it, basically. Recreated the part by taking a sample of the original DX organ. I've really tried to I've used it in a lot of my stuff, some of my early Shadow Child stuff. And it's a sound that I kind of don't really try and reach for too much now, because it's just kind of been done to death again. But in this track, that sound is what the record is. So, you know, I can't get away from that. I don't want to get away from that either, but I do want that kind of little bit of extra control over the sound, rather than it just being a stem. So I just recreated it. It's only a few notes. So there we go. Quite simple. So we should talk about the drums a bit now, because it's the first time the drums really kind of kick in. So I started building them in, I'm going to mute the organ for a sec so you can just hear them. I started building them in Reason. If we go to this first read drum, I always write things, as you can see here, I always write things on the step sequencer, and then bounce everything down onto the sequencer here, and then everything gets routed through Logic. So my drums come through on a stereo channel here, and then they all go over to the drum bus. So if I add any other drums or percussion in Logic, then it all kind of goes on the same channel on the drum bus there. We'll come back to that in a moment. Yeah, so I just started messing around. Didn't know if I wanted a kind of short kick or quite a long kind of subby kick, as it ended up being quite a nice big subby kick drum. So basically I've layered two together there just to get the attack from another kick which is simply that. And the other one is just quite subby, so they're just playing together for a bit of impact. The clap sound you heard earlier on the intro, little kind of skippy snare, and then some hi-hats. So that's the first kind of layer of drums. And then if we head down to this one, I do my main drums on the first redrum or on the first channel, and then the second one, redrum 2 here, I've got some percussion. So literally just shakers and stuff, and there's some more that kind of builds up if I play this next section as well. So this is from the same device. Hang on. Just take the loop out for a sec. So that's all coming from the second one if I let all the drums in. And that's the hi-hat that I mentioned on the intro, which comes back in and also starts opening back up again, just to give it a little bit more dynamic. If we go back into Logic and I solo the loop. Now I played you the stem earlier, which I've lost now, but anyway, I basically chopped it up and added a little bit of a slight swing to it because it was very straight. So I did this by literally just cutting things up and moving things around. So originally the loop was something like this. So all I've done is just looped up the first part of it, and then you get the kind of the original loop as the second part. Just to kind of slightly take it away from the original, because I like to be quite respectful to the original track. I don't like to, you know, people, if there's a track that's familiar to them, they kind of want to hear what they know, if that makes sense. And you know, I always try, and if I do one of these updates, that's what I try and do, is aim to give people that. So the drums are quite full on. I mean, I've not done much with such full-on drums, but because the rest of the track is quite almost minimal, there's not much else going on, I'll just play you this section. And then as we get into that second part where it really picks up, you can hear everything all in there. There's also that little kind of 909 hat, which is literally just done with the velocity. On that sound there, so quite simple. Again, just really effective. I found that's when you're doing things like this and there's not tons of parts to play with, that's kind of what you got to do, is just kind of try and be quite dynamic with what you're doing with drums and other things. That's all the main kind of drum parts for the moment. There is another loop actually that comes in later on in the track, which is that kind of, sounds like an amen cut up or something. So I've also filtered that right out just by using the EQ, really. Just took out all the low end, so you're just kind of getting almost just the ride cymbal. So that's that. So basically all my drums come together. They come in from Reason on this channel here. They bust out to number 10, which is over here. So again, I've used the Kramer tape on this just to give it a little bit of squash. Very slight. You can just about hear that, and then I always stick a limiter on there. So again, just the Fab Filter one. It's not really doing anything too exciting other than keeping everything in check. So that's the drums, and we're heading just back here into the breakdown. Now it's kind of weird, this tune, because it's almost like that bell sound and the organ are not quite in the same key as each other, but they weirdly work. So I had to find that transition between two things that was acceptable. This is where I kind of gave in and thought, this is much more of a DJ tool probably than a full remix. I mean, it is a remix, but it's about effectiveness in a DJ set more than it is about like, oh wow, a whole new version of a track or whatever. So getting into this middle section was tricky because of the two elements not quite being in the same key, weirdly, as each other. So it was kind of getting back into that bell sound from the beginning. So literally all I've done is used effects and fades to do it because I just didn't really know what else to do. And it's so effective when I play out. It's kind of, I was worried about it when I did it. I thought seems really, really lazy. It doesn't really feel like musically I'm kind of doing it justice in a way. But again, it's all about the effect that it has when you play it to a crowd, you know, and it works really well, this. So let's just go from there. So I literally just took all this section gradually out by using fades on the drums, as you can see there in Reason. And then if I go into automation here, you can see the organ sound here starting to disappear. Also, the reverb I brought up as well. It's quite a short reverb, but just makes things kind of spacey and gives people a kind of a breather that are listening to it, because it's quite full on other than that. So there's the bell sound just coming up again. You can see this is the automation for that big reverb, the same one on the intro. And there's also some filtering on this part as well. So it's kind of filtering down on a slight band pass and then up again at the end. And I stuck this weird effect on. It's almost adding something musical to it. I don't know if you can hear. Yeah, that there. It was totally unintentional, but it sounded cool. So we're just kind of back to where we were with that extra drum part in that I mentioned as well. But also I put this kick in, again, very simple. You can see the automation for that there. It's literally just volume, that's it. I mean, it's always the simple things that win on, you know, and are effective. So but that moment there, again, when you're playing it, it's so important. It's that people know something's coming. As soon as they get in on a huge system, that rumble with that kick coming back in there. But I've not really done that in any tunes before this. I've done it in a couple of things since because it's just so effective. Again, it's nothing that's kind of breaking any new ground, but it's just really nice and effective. You've got that little cymbal roller there as well, just on the hat again. And then we're into the end of the track already. The organ's just still doing its thing. Now, on the original track, there was all these other high-pitched kind of melodies using the same sound, which I kept thinking about using. There was this other little repeat, which I'll play it to you, which came with the original parts, which I tried to use here. Wasn't really convinced of it, and I didn't think it really kind of offered anything to the track. It does on the original, but on this version it just didn't really make any difference at all. And again, the effectiveness of that loop there, that's the only extra thing that you're getting on that second part, but it just adds so much. If I take it out and put it back again, and the essence of those original skippy drums from the original, if I take those out, you can hear what they're adding to it. You know, it's a really important part of the groove. And again, You can hear that 808 hi-hat really opening out there. And then you're onto the outro of the track. So very, very simple. There's not much to look at in Logic at all. You know, some tracks are like, you know, stacks of MIDI tracks or whatever, loads of stuff going on. There's more tracks in Reason, obviously, but that is just the drums. You know, this is one device, several tracks there for each device, several tracks for that device there. So, you know, if I do that, you're looking at 1, 2, 3 devices really doing all the work in Reason. You know, it's really not rocket science, this one, at all. So I'm guilty of working with a limiter on. A lot of people say, oh, you shouldn't do that, this, that and the other. But when I'm writing a track, whether it's a remix or an update, whatever you want to call this, or whether it's something of my own, I want that vibe while I'm writing. I don't want it to just be kind of plinky plonking away and then, you know, when I'm mixing the track, I'll stick it on. You know, you want that vibe when you're writing, because it's part of the buzz, it's part of what you're doing, it's part of the momentum of the writing of the track. So so I always, this is my go-to, which is part of the UAD, the position maximizer, and I mean, obviously for pre-mastering, I take it off. I send the label a pre-master with it off, but this is just for me whilst I'm working. You know, I want to feel that. You know, I'm always running everything really hot as well. Everything's really running into the red. I'm really bad for that. So something I do when I'm getting halfway towards the end of the track, maybe, is I stick on again. You can see I've gone -10. So I've stuck -10s on all the channels that I'm using, not on the buses obviously, but just on the channels that are giving me the sound sources, which gives me a lot more room to kind of push things. So yeah, I'm definitely guilty of not working the most conventional way, but you know, that's all part of getting good, I guess, at what you do, is finding your own way with things. So yeah, so that's what's on the master there. Yeah, gave it a little bit of a tickle using this. I don't often use this plugin, but I used it on this obviously just to give the low end a little bit of a tickle there as well. Yeah, and that is pretty much it. I like using hardware where I can as well, because I'm lucky to have quite a bit of hardware in my room, but on this track it just wasn't needed. It was about the drums, the effectiveness of the drums that were all coming from in the box, and also those original parts. You know, if I had the synth that made that bell sound, I would have redone it here, because all right, you've got the original part there, but it's just doing one note. You know, I would have tried to recreate that, and so I could do more with it. But yeah, again, sometimes limitations are good. There were certain limitations with this where there weren't many parts. It was literally about the vibe of it and getting the drums right, really. Yeah, and it was a privilege to do it. So thank you, R&S, as well. I've done a lot of remixing in my time with my old project and with this one. It's definitely one of my strengths, but there's always things that I wish I could go back to and fix, especially with my old project. I listen to some of it now and I'm just like, oh, I would do that differently. But that's just where I've progressed and technology's progressed, I guess, with you know, with what's going on. But I guess since I've been Shadow Child the last 3-4 years, some of the standout remixes are you know, the ones that have been most successful, things like Reverse Skydiving, I suppose, the Lunar George. You know, they were big kind of vocal records and really grabbed, you know, that era of house music that we're in at the moment, you know, by the nuts, which was great, and I'm happy to do that, amongst a lot of other great stuff as well. But for me, it's not just about those ones, it's about production for me, and it's about getting something out of an original track which I can really bring into my world. So there's 2 or 3 others that I really love that I've done. One is Scam, I Got What You Need, which was one of the early remixes. It was on my friend's label, Alive Recordings. The parts for that were really good. They had really good vocal kind of edits and things going on, quite atmospheric. I love stuff like that. So that was one that was really exciting to do. I haven't played it for a while, so I might have to dig it out. The remix for Youssef as well, which was on Defected. I can't remember the name of it right now, but I think production-wise, vibe, the bass sound in that I use from Trillion. I don't really use Trillion very much, but I found this one sound in there which was really exciting, and that's the bass sound in that. And yeah, I really, really love that remix. There's also the London Grammar remix, the really stripped back one. It's not 4/4, it's just, originally with this project I didn't want to have any rules, unfortunately the one downside I guess with a bit of success is people expect you to do that same thing over and over and over, and that's not what I wanted to do with this project. So the London Grammar remix was something that I was able to just play with and just do my own thing, and it's very atmospheric, a lot of reverse pianos. It's all about the voice and a vibe really, as opposed to kind of a big 4/4 record with build-ups and the whole dance floor experience. So that's a definite favourite as well. But more recently, the Jaydee we've been through today is something I'm definitely chuffed with. I've been lucky to update quite a few old classic tracks in my time with this project and my old project. So yeah, it's always a blessing to get your hands on some of the original remix parts and hear them in their kind of rawest form, and this was one of those remixes for sure. But yeah, remixing is important, but it's I think you have to back it up with your own material as well. It's a definite 60-40 with me on the remix side. I always feel I need to do more originals, but people love my remixes, which I'm always happy with. So I can't complain. So yeah, and I guess not doing too many. I think the first year 18 months I did rather a lot of remixing, which is great to put the project on the map. But I think you have to kind of, once you get to a certain kind of space with what you're doing, you need to kind of be a little bit more strategic about what you're doing and how you're going to get them out there, and also who you're doing them for as well, not just grabbing everything. Because as you get the kind of success with things, you end up with major labels coming in, which is great. I'm not going to lie, they're great paydays, but they're not always creatively the best thing, because the label will want you to take it a certain way or want you to do it like something you've done before. And I just feel, as I was saying about the London Grammar remix, I just want time and space to do my own thing with a remix. I think it's important to let that come through. But yeah, there's too many for me to think of right now. But they're all the standout remixes for me anyway that I've done so far. I've been Shadow Child. Thank you for coming today to visit the studio and check out the Jaydee mix. It will be featuring on my Connected album, which is a body of work that is all collaborations, and it'll be out towards the end of the summer in 2016. So make sure you check that out. I'll be after you.